Hello from the European Research Council in Brussels, and welcome to this webinar. Today's topic is about the ERC Scientific Council's decision to launch a new type of longer-term, higher budget grants called ERC Plus. My name is Martin Penny, and I'm the Head of Communication in the ERC Executive Agency. And today we're honoured to have in the ERC studio with us the President of the ERC Council, Professor Maria Leptin, and also the new head of the ERC Scientific Management Department, Philippe Coopers. And Maria will explain to us the rationale behind these new grants, and together with Philippe, they will answer any questions that you may have to ask us. Now, we're pleased to see that so many of you are connected. Before we start, please note that the question and answers in YouTube is deactivated, and that we'll be using Slido for your questions. Now, the code will remain the same through the whole duration of the webinar, and you can see it on your screen now. And you see the code and the hashtag that is there. So you've been introduced to us. We'd like to get to know a little bit more about you. And so we have 3 questions for you to understand who our audience is this afternoon. To reply, you can use the same Slido hashtag ERC+, or the QR code. So firstly, let's find out where you're connecting from. So the question is on screen. We're waiting for your answers to come through. Interesting, the first one which comes up is the USA. Lots from the UK, Scotland, I see Germany, from Denmark, from Portugal. We have people coming from Ireland, from Hungary, from Austria, Switzerland, from Belgium now, Switzerland getting bigger. You see from most of the member states I see on screen, some from outside of the member states. I see Zurich in addition to Switzerland, Turkey, Poland, Turkey as well as Turkey, Latvia, Estonia, Greece. So I think we have a very broad geographical representation of where people are coming from. So I'll move on to the second question, which is we'd like to know your job position. And here the options are given on the screen. Are you a researcher? Are you a PhD or student or postdoc? Are you university administrative staff, technical staff, or other, which could be, for example, that you're helping people write proposals, you're journalists. So I see that the vast majority have answered so far. We have 218 who have answered. Most of you are full-time researchers. There's a lot of university administrative staff, so those of you who are thinking of writing proposals, there's a lot of people out there who can help you write good proposals and assist you with all of the admin requirements in writing your proposals. So the vast majority of the audience are researchers, some administrative staff, some other, and also some PhD students and postdocs, and very good to see that we have the broad range of the research community here with this afternoon. Thank you. Then my final question is just as simple. Have you already applied for an ERC grant? Or are you planning to apply for an ERC grant? And there's different options in terms of whether you've applied and were successful. No, you've never applied. I've applied, but I've not received a grant yet. So it's quite equal. We're up to just over 120 responses. So many people have not applied yet, but are planning to apply. Some, of course, this is not applicable because you could be university administrative support staff. Yes, I've applied, but haven't received a grant yet. And I also see that we have 19% who are, 18% now, who are of the people who are watching who've already received an ERC grant.
Very good. Very interesting.
Okay, so thank you. Now that we've got to know you, I'll let you tell a little bit more about how this webinar will work. So we'll start with an introductory speech from Maria. During Maria's speech, we'll open the questions and answers in Slido, and the rest of this webinar will be dedicated to answering any questions which you may have. But let me give you some housekeeping rules for Slido. So you submit your question by Slido, but you may also want to review the questions which have been submitted by others. And if your question is in a similar direction or a similar vein, you can simply upvote them by using the thumbs up tag. And this will increase its position in the list of questions, and we will answer the questions which are the most popular first of all. We will try and answer as many of your questions as possible, both live by Maria and Philippe, and in writing by Slido. But if by the end of the webinar we haven't answered all of them, don't worry, we will answer your questions. We'll do so in writing and post them on our website following the end of the webinar. Just one more piece of housekeeping rules. On YouTube, you can activate the live subtitles in English as a visual aid. And you can also find in the description box on YouTube the link to the different types of grants the ERC currently offers, and also many areas of other useful information. So I've done enough introduction. I'm sure you're interested in now going to the next part of this webinar, and let's find out more about what these grants are. So Maria, if I can turn to you, can you tell us what the ERC Plus grants are and what they will offer?
Yes, so I'll start a little bit with a background, why we introduced them now. I'll then try and explain who they're intended for you, of course, the researchers, but what particular type of researcher we have in mind, what they are, what they'll provide, and then also a little bit on how we will manage the selection. So background. The grants that we're offering now were first announced as super grants at the time. We decided later to change the name, by Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and Commissioner Katerina Zakharieva. When at the Sorbonne in May this year, President Macron and President von der Leyen launched the Choose Europe for Science initiative. So they're part of that initiative, and I should say right away, we, the ERC and the Scientific Council of the ERC, are extremely grateful to the Commission that they've actually provided additional funding for this. So that's important to remember. These grants came in the context of taking account what was going on in the US, where the conditions for our colleagues over there were, getting worse as we were watching, and we were wondering how we could help our colleagues there, in particular those who were looking to be, let's call it, rescued, while the conditions there were bad. And so we thought it would be important to make it clear that Europe is great for doing science. And I will say right away that great for doing science, not only for incoming, but also for resident researchers. So these grants are open for anyone. We were already thinking, we being the Scientific Council who sets the strategy for the ERC, we're already thinking about different funding instruments. We were also acknowledging that we haven't adapted the funding levels of our regular grants for very long. So we were already thinking about different funding instruments. We had other input, ERC chairs, things like that, really attractive grants. And so that's what we came up with. And within the last half year, we've actually set up a program, the conditions, etc., the description for these ERC Plus grants. So they will be announced and they will be implemented as part of the Work Programme 2026, the so-called Work Programme. So they will they will be opened for applications next year and will be available the year after and the year after, two years, under the final 2 years of this current funding period for the ERC. Now, I said who? The ERC Plus grants will not have the regular age cohorts that you're used to from our other regular grants. So there will be no distinction between junior, middle, and advanced career stages. They'll be open to everyone. They will be open for people resident in Europe of any nationality, or ones who are setting up labs in Europe. The idea is that they are for people to address major scientific challenges that cannot be tackled through one of our regular grants. So I think that is the defining factor, a grant that goes beyond what a regular ERC grant could achieve. As everything else we do, They will be based exclusively on scientific excellence. The selection will be based exclusively on scientific excellence. It'll be fully bottom-up, free of any thematic priorities, and it'll be evaluated by top-level experts, and I'll get to that in a moment. But first, a little bit more about what they are. Actually, let me go back to the who and to eligibility. Anyone who's already got an ERC grant cannot apply for this one. You may be, you're only eligible if you don't already hold a grant. So if you're disappointed about that, I have to say that the Scientific Council really wishes to continue this in the further future, but of course we don't even know what the further future looks like at all, but it's open for the moment for the next 2 years. So now what will the grants be? They will be, they will provide up to 7 million euros and for up to 7 years. There is no minimum you can ask for. If you can make do with less than 7 million euros, then we encourage you to be honest and ask for less than 7 million euros. Few people will, I suppose, but it's possible because the other aspect, 7 years, is also an attractive aspect. But there, conversely, we're saying there is a minimum. It doesn't have to be 7 years, but we're looking at 4 to 7 years. Okay. So if you have a very expensive project, but that can be achieved in 4 years, for example, because you need to test many things in parallel to make progress, because you have a very expensive expedition or whatever, 4 years is fine. 4 to 7 years, up to 7 million euros. The grants will be provided in the form of a lump sum, but the most important thing to be said is probably that the number will be very limited. So the funding, the additional funding we've received will allow us to award 30 grants per year. Now, to put that into perspective, you know how competitive the regular grants are. 20% of those of you who are in the audience have got one. You know it wasn't easy. You may have had to apply more than once. Another good proportion have not had one. So our current grants are already very competitive, but we award 1,000 of those. So it'll be 30 of these compared to 1,000 of those. So why am I stressing this? It'll be very, very competitive. We don't like to disappoint our community. There's another restriction that does not apply to our regular advanced grants. It does apply to starting and consolidator. Anyone may hold an ERC Plus grant only once in their lifetime. So if you were successful, you are never allowed to apply again because they're very special. Of course, you can apply to all the others. But what we're trying to say is think very hard about the right time, the right moment to apply for such a grant. If you apply for this one, you may not apply for your regular starting consolidator or advanced grants or participate in a synergy at the same time. And I'll be happy to talk more about that. The application format, those of you who've been through one application know how it works. We will use the same forms as the existing schemes, with one small difference. We are asking for a vision. We're asking you to explain why this is something that can't be achieved, how it goes beyond what you could achieve with a regular grant. Are you proposing to open up a new field, change the direction of your field, or do something, like I say, that requires such a broad approach that it could simply not be done? You'll have 1/2 up to 2 pages. We're hoping that you'll only use 1/2 and that the punchy, brief explanation that you'll need to convince the panels can be summarized in 1/2 a page. So that is an additional statement we'll be asking you in addition to the regular forms that we have. We'll open the call in the early summer next year. The deadline will be September. And like I've already said, it's open to all career stages. It will be evaluated in 2 steps, like all our regular grants. And the first step will be assessed by advanced grant panel members, which will be sitting at the same time as, who will be handling these. I should give a little bit of a de-panic message to the younger ones among you. Some people are very concerned that if they're competing with advanced level colleagues as young researchers, all the grants will go to those with long publication lists. Well, nonsense. Sorry. First of all, you know, we no longer ask for long publication lists anyway. We ask for a limited set of achievements where you have a free text form to explain why it was such a great achievement. So that's one thing. The other thing is, we discussed this in the Scientific Council, and the Scientific Council is absolutely clear, A, that the buzziest, the most exciting ideas often come from the earlier career researchers. So we recognize that. We also know that everybody who sits on our panels is experienced in making selections. We select, and in our recruitment panels, our colleagues. So we know, we recognize that people who come straight from a postdoc, you know, sometimes put us in total awe. And we recognize interest, we recognize, you know, the potential to do groundbreaking work. So don't worry. And I always brief panels before they sit and make their selections. I will really be clear in my narrative here that experience is not the point, but the proof that you've done something. It can have been a small thing, but something that goes beyond what your peers at your career stage normally do. You will be compared to to others at your career stage. So no concern about that. And you have a little brownie point already, because everybody believes that the younger ones are really good at proposing groundbreaking groundbreaking ideas. Back to the mechanism. Advanced grants panels will do the initial assessment, the field-specific technical assessment of the proposal, and they will select the very top, you know, the ones that really blow them away, and pass those to a second set of referees, of reviewers, our plus panels. And those we will populate by people who are really, really experienced. So they will be leaders of institutes, former panel chairs whom we have observed to be deeply insightful, tolerant of, you know, interested in diversity, etc. So we're putting together panels for the second step, who will then look at the vision. We will not do nitpicking at that stage. We really want the visions and the comparison across all fields. So we think this will be interesting and fun, and we're hoping that what we get from you, the applicants, are those grants that really blow those panels away. And as Martin said, Philippe and I will be very happy to take your questions.
No, thank you very much, Maria, for that very clear overview of this new and exciting grant scheme. And now, as Maria said, it's time to turn to you in the audience and your questions. And I see that we already have some questions in Slido. Just to remind you, you can submit them at any point. You see the code, the QR code on screen, and also the hashtag which is there. Again, we will answer the questions in the order they come. So can holders of finished grants apply?
Yes, absolutely.
Very clear.
Very simple. Just not if you're holding one right now.
Okay.
I think what does it mean? That's a really important question.
So let me read the question. What does it mean for projects that go beyond the other ERC grants? They think this may sound quite vague. Explain a little bit more details.
So we in fact spent a lot of time thinking about that. You know, we're already asking you to come with your very best ideas, most groundbreaking, most creative, most original. So what other words can we use to explain what we mean by these grants? It's really difficult, and because that's what we want. And so, but this is more money, and it is for a longer time. So that needs some kind of justification. We appreciate that you can't have even bigger ideas. except that, you know, sometimes you have a big vision. You know it can't be financed through a regular grant. You know it may come across as mad or as, you know, overly ambitious. You know, you therefore apply for it in tranches. You may get some from national funding. You think, okay, I'll try half of this in my first grant, and then if it goes well, I go beyond that. So this will allow you to do more. It'll allow you to say, I have these ideas. This is where I ultimately want to end up. In the first 2 or 3 or 4 years, I will have to do this preparatory work. And then in the last 3 years of this grant, this will come to fruition. We don't expect you to describe deliverables. That's impossible for this period. But it's that kind of thing where you see a further vision or something really difficult. Like I said, that's technically tricky, where you need to cover a lot in a short time in order then to be prepared, you know, to open a new field. You may not want results, but you may want to create tools. So you know, if I could describe now what we mean, then we wouldn't be getting the groundbreaking ideas. It's like having to describe work packages and deliverables. That's not what this kind of research is for. Me describing what you might find groundbreaking, that would be counterproductive. So we rely on you. We rely on your excellent ideas.
Okay, thank you, Maria. I think that's much clearer. Can I?
Well, I'm not sure it's much clearer.
I think it is. It gives a lot more information in
Okay.
terms of what we see in that respect. Philippe, maybe I can turn to you with the next question in terms of the types of grants. Are these primarily a mono-beneficiary single PI, or are they intended to resemble more like the synergy grant, where we bring together two, three, or four PIs?
The answer is very clear. Those grants are intended for single PI and does not resemble the synergy grants at all.
Exactly.
So very clear.
So very clear, very straightforward.
Yeah.
Do you want to add something?
Well, I mean, we do have the option also, but what Philippe has said is the answer. It is for individuals with a groundbreaking idea, really a transformative idea. That's another word that was used in the Scientific Council. Of course, if you need colleagues who help, if you have collaborators who make an essential contribution, put them in. Just the same rules apply as for any of the other grants. And I really encourage you to visit the website and check those details. And of course, our scientific officers will be helping you with that.
Indeed, so more like the individual grants
Yes.
in style.
It's
Okay.
exactly like the three types of
And
individual grants.
maybe I can turn to the next question, which is something which I think will be asked a lot in terms of the science coverage that we'll have with these. Will you distribute equally the 30 grants across different disciplines?
No quotas. The panels in the last step will not be. Now we, of course, have our selection by panels, by fields. You apply to a certain panel. You still do that. So, because the first step will be field specific, we will need expertise there. The second step, the panels will not be subdivided by fields or domains.
Okay.
On the contrary, we will have, because we expect to evaluate in the second step about 100, hopefully a little bit less to not overburden our panels. Those will be distributed over 3 panels, and each of these 3 panels will have representatives from all domains. We don't know how many we anticipate receiving from any particular domain, so we will have no quotas. And they will also not be allowed quotas. They will be comparing across fields. Now, that is actually also something that we heard concerns about, you know. I'm going to have, you know, I'll be submitting an archaeology grant and I will have Maria Leptin, a developmental biologist, judging my grant. What? Again, we will have people on these panels who are used to sitting on prize panels, on high-level evaluation panels. We're used to that, and these panels are actually very interesting always. And I think not having nitpicking expertise, but people who are used to looking at grand visions, we're hoping this will work well.
Yep.
We're going to just say that was an example. You're not going to be on the panel
No,
yourself.
I'm not
you
going
have
to
quite,
be on the
You have quite enough to
yes,
do with your time.
No,
so.
I'm not going. Never involved in any evaluation. Complete firewall.
So Philippe, you want to add something else yet?
Yeah, I just want to add to what Maria mentioned, that those ERC Plus panel members, they will be helped with remote reviews by specialized people.
Yes, exactly.
They will be helped by remote reviewers of the advanced grants panel members, but also of additional remote reviewers who are specialized people in their specific area. And of course, this will provide further insights for the ERC Plus in order to select the best proposals.
Yes. Maybe we should also say something about the ranking in the first place, because there are people in the audience who have applied, who will have gotten feedback. We will not have an ABC system. We will just have a pass, non-pass, because what we're looking for are those types of grants where everybody on the panel says, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so it'll be a pass, non-pass, or a oh, wow, or maybe great, maybe fantastic, but not oh, wow.
And in addition, also very important, there is no ceiling, no cap for the amount of proposal advancing from step 1 to step 2.
Exactly.
You may know that for their starting grants, consolidator grants, advanced grants, we have a cap of 44 for the step 2. This would not apply for the ERC Plus. Any outstanding proposal that deserve to pass to step 2 will pass to step 2.
So no cap on oh wow proposals, which is great.
If there are more oh wow proposals,
then great.
Fine. Yes, we'd love to see those.
Okay. The next question is one which I'm sure a lot of people will want to know. When there's only 30 grants, what happens if you aren't one of the lucky few? What are the consequences of failure with respect to the other funding schemes in particular?
So I can't make any legally binding statement on that, because the subsequent calls will be under subsequent legislation. But the intention of the Scientific Council is, if you try for this, and fail, you're not going to be banned from applying for a regular grant. Even so, please, those of you who aren't sure, we won't be able to handle everybody giving it a try. So think carefully and choose the right time for your grant. Take extra long to prepare it, and make extra sure is really, really good. But for the moment, we can't predict, but the idea is not to punish.
Okay.
Well, actually, sorry, punish is the wrong word. It's just that we are totally flooded with applications, and we have to find some way of dealing with the flood. And so restrictions for subsequent calls will be in place for everybody. For this one, for the moment, there's no plan.
Okay.
And in addition, there are also some restrictions for the current call in 2026. We can come back on that later if there is a question coming on that one. Otherwise, I will intervene at a good moment to explain that.
Okay, that's fine. So maybe if we go to the next question. I see there's a question lower on in terms of a 1 or 2 year ban is the word used, restrictions for applying to regular calls. Maybe we can park that question because you've answered it already. But the question is, which again people will ask a lot, is the procedures. Will there be an interview step?
Yes. The plan is to have an interview at the second step. So the the plus panel will interview the applicants. These interviews will, of course, have to be slightly different, because now often that interview is used to go over technical details that weren't clear in the application, or where the panel wants more information. The way I've described to you how we'll populate these panels, and we're looking for the vision, the generalist point of view, that would be inappropriate. So that is still in the planning, how we will handle this interview, but it really will be slightly different. I was going to say something else, but it'll come back.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah,
we'll come back to it. I'm sure there'll be other questions in this respect. So the question is just on a clarification on who can apply. Philippe, maybe I'll come to you with this one. In question of clarification, Mia's comments. Can researchers and scholars who never received an ERC grant apply?
Absolutely. Anybody can apply to the ERC Plus, provided they have an outstanding ID that cannot be achieved by any other ERC grants. not by starting grant, not by consolidated grant, not by advanced grants, but anybody can apply unless they would have an ongoing ERC grant. That's important. Where can they be established? At the time of the submission, they can be established in any country, either in a member state or in a country associated to the resident, yes, or in a country associated to the framework program, or outside. Of course, at the time of signing the grant agreements, they will have to be established, resident, and run their research within a host institution established in a country of the EU, member states, or in a country associated to the framework program.
When they start their grant.
When they start their
signature,
grant.
they can still be in the point of moving. But
That's correct.
When they
That's
start
correct.
their grant,
correct.
and so that's very clear. Maria, so.
I wanted to add something. I remember what I wanted to say. So yes, everyone can apply, but for our regular grants, we very much ask the panels, at least at step one, not to look so much at the achievements of the applicants and give the benefit of the doubt, etc. In this one, if we give somebody 7 million for 7 years as a lump sum, that's huge trust. So on this one, the Scientific Council felt that we do have to look more at past achievements, proof that a person can carry out such a big project. Again, the younger ones among you will think, well, how can I do that? I've just finished my postdoc. I know postdocs who did projects as postdocs in labs of their, with the support of their PI, but they were really their own ideas and who can prove that it was they who drove a big discovery. So I think the panels will be looking for that kind of evidence because 7 years, 7 million lump sum is a lot.
And those applicants are really expected to be leaders in their scientific area, whatever the career stage at which they are. But they must be expected to be leaders in their scientific area. This is really important. Keep always in mind at any stage of writing your application, we will fund 30 grants. It will be super competitive. This is important to keep in mind. Very important.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we move on to the next question. I see we have 83 questions. Don't worry, keep them coming. We will answer any of the extra ones in writing. Philippe, maybe I will come to the next one in terms of whether the 7 million will be prorated by length. So can you have 4 million and 4 years and 7 million?
That's correct. You can have 4 years and 7 million. There will be no pro rata application of the funding versus the duration.
Okay, very clear. Next, we go to the next question, which is, can ERC Plus grant holders apply for a normal grant in the future once their ERC Plus grants are finished?
Absolutely. The answer is yes. Once the ERC Plus grant will be finalized, terminated, ended, they can, of course, come and apply to any other grant if the eligibility conditions allow that.
Maria, the next,
any other ones, yes.
Maria, the next question is kind of in the same vein in terms of what did you mean by once in a lifetime? Can you have one grant or can you apply only once?
No, you can hold it once in a lifetime. You can apply more than once.
Okay, thank you.
We're actually hoping that we will even get enough money in our next budget to be able to carry on with this program. But I think we have support from the Commission there.
Maria, the next question is really looking at one of the things you said in terms of we're expecting all career stages can apply for these grants. And they ask if it's based on scientific excellence, how do you normalise this between somebody who's maybe 3 years post-PhD and a more established professor?
Yes. So we don't normalise, we don't use metrics, and this is even more important here. So even with the current grants, the people, applicants think, especially the starting and consolidator applicants, think that they have a better chance when they've got a little bit further in their application, in the time window. The actual truth is that if you look at the success rates across the starting grant window or across the consolidator grant window, the ones who apply early, except in the very first year of starting, I have to be truthful about that, but for the remaining years, absolutely flat. Consolidator, absolutely flat. So the panels recognize we don't use metrics, and metrics here will be even less appropriate. So when we say a great idea or a great achievement, then, you may have developed code that is used by everyone in the world in a particular field. You may not have a huge publication list, but you may have transformed the field by producing code that went beyond anything that anybody ever did, as a postdoc, even as a graduate student. So come and apply. The panels, I assure you the panels will recognize this and won't have to resort to counting, beans.
Okay, clear. So we move to the next question, which is a very specific question, but we'll see if we can answer it live, otherwise we'll answer this one in writing. If I submit an ERC Consolidated Grant application in January this next year, will this make me ineligible to apply for the ERC Plus Grant in September 2026? Oh, very clear. Yep.
Yes, because you can apply only for one single ERC grant in one single core year. So you have to choose, either you apply to a consolidated grant or to ERC Plus.
So that's clear. One active application
exactly.
at a time. Okay, next question. When will the templates be available? These grants take a long time to prepare. And indeed, that's why we've had this work program, this webinar today, to already prepare people in advance. But Philippe, maybe you can talk a little bit more about the call.
Yes, absolutely. So the call is expected to be open at the latest in June 2026. The deadline is expected to be in September 2026. The step 1 evaluation would normally run in November 2026, and the step 2 evaluation end of March, early April 2027. And all the documents related to the calls, guide for applicants, all the forms, the templates, of course, will be available on the funding portal. And all the documents will also be available at the time of the call publication.
But we should say they're not going to be different.
No,
apart
that's correct.
from the vision statement, they will be the same as for the regular grants.
That's an important point to make. I mean, if you are used already to the starting grant, consolidated grant, advanced grant application, those ERC Plus will be very similar, actually totally similar. With one exception, you will have to add to this application what is called the vision of statement, as Maya mentioned, with either half a page or up to 2 pages.
Half a page, please.
And she insists on the half a page.
You're
So
not
let's keep half a page.
No, I'm not evaluating, I'm just trying to protect our evaluators. Philippe, let's remind them that you mentioned they may have applied before and they know the system. The starting and consolidator applicants don't know the lump sum system. And the forms for applying for an advanced grant that also comes for with lump sums are slightly different from the starting and consolidator. So if anybody's interested, look at the instructions for advanced grants and this is especially for the university administrators who are sitting here. So it'll be lump sums, so advise your younger staff to look at that or help them look at that.
Yeah, that's an important point. Okay. Also because a lump sum application includes what is called an equipment depreciation table, for example. So keep in mind that.
Okay, we move to the next question. So why are you spending money on this in the Scientific Council? Why did the Scientific Council decide to do this rather than giving money to the other grants? The funding per project hasn't increased despite inflation and the success rate is decreasing. Why are we spending money on this, Maria?
Yes, so it is sort of, I totally sympathize with that question. And of course the Scientific Council thought about that too. So it will not really affect our others because we're getting additional money from the Commission for that. So, and even so, we might have hesitated, but precisely because we haven't adapted the grant sizes and intend to do that, we thought this was a nice pilot to test how this would work, what we would get. Other granting agencies have also gone to longer, or using a subset of their funding for longer and better funded grants. So it's a little bit of a pilot with a small number, as you can see, to test what comes in and whether that serves a niche of demand in Europe that hasn't been served in the past by the ERC.
Okay, thank you. I move to the next question, which is in terms of, I think, particularly looking at step 2. How will the different fields be evaluated relative to each other? They're asking, are there common criteria, or what are the common criteria for evaluating natural sciences, engineering and humanities?
Yes. That's a really interesting question, and I have sat on prize panels or other evaluation panels where one has to do that. And it's quite interesting because, I mean, recently I was one where there were 4 life science grants, but from very diverse fields, from evolution, population biology to, you know, brain-machine interfaces, really different, none of my field. And one about looking at ice cores and another looking at colliding neutron stars. The panel, I was the only biologist. There were chemists and other people. There was a philosopher on the panel. We very soon agreed. It was really quite amazing. So that's why we are populating this panel with people who are experienced in looking at the entire range, who are generalists. I mean, experience is not the only thing. It's also mindset. Of looking outside your field, having sympathy for findings outside your field. So we'll have to rely on that.
Okay, we'll move to the next question, which is, it's already hard to evaluate if a regular ERC idea or candidate is ERC material, as they put it. Is the scheme, they say, may create confusion?
Yeah.
Isn't the ERC, oh wow, already? And I think, yes, that's the case.
Yes,
so
exactly. That's exactly what I tried to say earlier. How can you out there, who've already been asked to put forward your bestest ideas, your most amazing thoughts, and write grants to a level of perfection that is just like a shiny diamond? How can we ask you for more? We appreciate that. But 7 million is more, and it may enable you to do things that you couldn't do.
Indeed.
Longer vision, longer perspective, broader, more varied initial approach to focus on a later approach. There are many things I can think of that would justify asking for more.
And more
that's
means
what
to achieve it.
Huh?
And more means to achieve it.
More means to achieve it. Exactly.
Indeed.
Exactly.
Indeed. Philippe, maybe I can turn to you with the next question, which is talking about the host institution letter, which is part of the normal submission approach that we have. They say some universities are making it harder to get. Will we need a host institution letter for
That's
ERC
correct.
Plus?
We need a letter of support by the host institution for the ERC Plus, as we also do for any other type of grants. So this is inevitable. I just see here in the question that some host institutions are making it a bit harder for some people. I don't have a miracle solution for that, but I mean, this is inevitable. You must have a letter of support of your HI.
And I think it's something which perhaps making sure you do early in the process of writing to make sure you have that support.
Yes, that's
rather than
correct.
leaving it to the last minute. I think last minute requests for host institutions could be difficult. Maybe that's the reason. So
you see long faces here about us hearing that host institutions are not supportive. Not good.
But Maria, a question that we have on numbers. Will you award more than 30 grants if there are many of them have or ask for less than 7 million euros?
Absolutely. We have a budget and that budget will be filled. That's what we do with all our panels. We rank and, use up the money.
Yeah. So the same as our normal grants, we use up all the money that we can, we fund the best we can until there's no money which is left over in the core budget. Okay. Then is there a minimum time commitment requirement as stipulated for the ERC grants? Maybe Philippe, you can ask about
absolutely.
that. So time on the grant and time in Europe as well.
Absolutely. So the minimum percentage of time working on the grant will be 30%, and the minimum time for working within EU or country associated to the members to the framework program will be 50%. So similar numbers as for the advanced grants.
Yeah. Okay, very, very clear. And the next question, I don't know if it's my accent, but is the UK included in eligibility? Maybe Philippe, you answered that.
Absolutely. UK is considered as a country associated to the framework program, and therefore PI established within a UK host institution are perfectly eligible to apply for this program.
And Switzerland too.
And Switzerland too.
And indeed all of the other associated countries to fill it.
And this is not only for ERC Plus, by the way, this is valid for any other type of grant funded by the ERC.
Okay, thank you. Then a question which is quite looking in terms of the type of research which may be preferred. Will interdisciplinary research be preferred for ERC Plus grants?
There are no top-down requirements or demands. this may actually be a good one for interdisciplinary because the second panel will be very interdisciplinary by definition. So we don't make demands. The idea, the proposal, the approach is the most important thing. Often interdisciplinary, we all know that at the interface of disciplines, of different fields, new ideas arise. I remember it from my own career. It was the most exciting thing to talk to someone from a completely different field and find a common question that could be asked. So it is well possible that the best ideas come from these, but there's no pre-selection for that, no specific criterion.
So it's possible, but also possible that they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. If you have a very focused question in your own field that's just big and expensive and long-term, fine.
Philippe, maybe I can turn to you for the next question, because it's perhaps with your former job hat on in terms of your former role as the head of the Life Sciences unit. In Life Sciences panels in recent years, we've never seen anyone winning an ERC grant without a Nature publication paper. I'm surprised to read that, but that's the question. Is this the same for these grants?
There is no requirement in any ERC grant to have those kind of paper. The requirement is to be excellent. And that's the most important thing. And it will be the same for the ERC Plus Grants. ERC applies and follows DORA recommendation, just to remind you. And therefore, the important thing is that as a PI, you have demonstrated that you are a leader in the field, in the case of the ERC Plus Grants, at any stage of your career, that you are really at the top of your scientific research field. That's the most important thing.
Okay, thank you.
And we include in the permissible, this goes for all grants, in the permissible evidence for productivity, of course, preprints posted on archive, bioarchive, medRxiv. So we're very explicit about that to the panels as well. I'd actually like to see that statistic that's referred to. Let's look into that, Philippe, because
I'd be surprised.
Know for sure, I know people who refuse to to publish in those journals now and who are grantees. So we'll look into it. Conversely, we mustn't kid ourselves. Often those people who are the leaders do publish in those journals.
Clear.
So there's a correlation, but as Philippe said, no request, and I'm sure from my own experience there are exceptions.
Maybe we can take the next two questions together, because the first one is a question in terms of how important feasibility will be, and the second one is whether there'll be some kind of go, no-go in the project. If you ask for 7 years for a risky project, some will probably fail because the idea just isn't working before the end of the 7 years. So maybe we can take those two questions together.
Yeah. So feasibility, by the way, that's interesting that that's brought up. We have tuned that down, especially in our first evaluation step, because it leads to conservatism, and the worst statement is what they want to do X, Y, Z. I don't think that's ever been done before, so let's not try. That is, of course, the exact opposite of what we want.
Indeed.
We want bold new ideas. Now, there are different ways of approaching the term feasibility. It could mean, that reagent, he didn't tell us or she didn't tell us what reagents they're going to use, so we can't judge. Let's not look at the grant. That's nonsense. We will discourage that kind of evaluation at the first step. I do it even now. What is the case, however, is that a good idea is a good idea, but it's only a good idea if there's also a good approach to asking it. And so the description of the approach is very important. How will you go about it? Are you going to do an expedition? Are you going to do a literature survey? Are you going to do a population survey, sampling? Are you going to do a genetic or a biochemical screen? There are many ways where you describe the approach, and that has to be convincing. Feasibility in detail is not right. And remember I said we're looking for people who have demonstrated that they can achieve great things. So, and I've also mentioned that there's an element of trust. So with the people we'll be hoping to hear from, we should, and I will remind the panels of that, be able to rely on them knowing what they're doing, so we don't need to go into details of feasibility. Approach is different.
And Philippe, maybe you can take the second question in terms of this
Yes.
feasibility and also the flexibility in our grants.
That's correct.
If there's a no-go stage.
That's correct. And first of all, let me continue on what Maria was saying. Of course, in the full proposal, applicants will be asked to describe the methodology
exactly.
that they intend to follow. And this will be assessed by
experts.
specialized and experts, people in the field.
Yeah.
Now, in the last question that, Martin, you were referring to, I've seen that will there be a go, no-go in those grants? For example, if the first working hypothesis will not be working or whatever. The idea, no, there will be no such a go, no-go, like there is no go, no-go in any other ERC grants that we have. We are fully open and we appreciate that some parts of a project may not work as initially intended. And this is all fine. This is frontier research.
Indeed.
We appreciate serendipity. Those are things that happen in any grant. There is no reason that they could not happen a fortiori for a 7 years grant of such an ambition level, like it happened also in advanced COC or starting grants.
Yeah. So we should add, Philippe, that of course this happens also in our regular grants, that you may, there's a number of things. Something may not work.
Yep.
Then you had better terminate it than doggedly continuing along a dead end that you know is a dead end. Conversely, there are also other possibilities, especially over such a long time. New techniques may arise.
Exactly.
Other people may discover something that completely pushes you in a different direction. In those cases, if you really start going orthogonal to where you were at the beginning, you can always contact the agency and ask for an amendment. It's advisable to do that if the aims become very different. The agency assesses this and is very open. As you can hear from Philippe, we totally understand what it means to do frontier research. So there are means that the ERC has for dealing with this. It's what is wanted, and so there are means for dealing with it.
That's correct. And in addition to new technologies, new data may also become available in database, whatever.
Anything.
So things are moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm insisting on that because also keep in mind this is a project with lump sum, but our idea of lump sum and the way we apply lump sum does not mean that we do not apply full flexibility in the project. That's also important to keep in mind.
But that's also important for the university administrators who are sitting here and might be advising people. We, just because it's a lump sum, does not mean we have work packages, deliverables, you know, specific aims. The final funding will not be awarded on having done by the letter what the grant says. Reassurance for universities.
Very clear. So I will move to the next grant, which is the next question, which is coming to eligibility again. So researchers that had an ERC starting grant or consolidated grant are therefore not eligible to apply for an ERC Plus grant. I think there's some misunderstanding there. So maybe you can clarify that.
That's not correct.
No.
If you are an applicant and that you had already an ERC starting grant or an ERC consolidated grant or even an ERC advanced grant, you are eligible for ERC Plus. The only condition is that your current grant is over. But otherwise, you are perfectly eligible for an ERC Plus. Just me to clarify this misunderstanding.
So just one grant at a time, but
one grant at a time. That's the thing.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, if you need to be a leader in your field, any groundbreaking ideas not directly related to your current scientific community will not be considered. That's the question. Is that the case?
Well, I mean,
I
assume if you're a philosopher, you're not going to come in and tell us you're going to do astrophysics as your next thing. So leader in your, you know, you will have to have done something very important in your field. Switching fields is great. I mean, we also do get from panel members, they're proposing to do something new, but they've never worked in this field. We will discourage that too. I mean, like I say, from philosopher to astrophysicist or from mechanical engineer to, you know, surgery, well, actually that might be possible.
And physics and philosophy too, perhaps as well. But
I know. There are transitions set, but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. I think the audience does too.
You know, let's not be pedantic. I think new fields is fine. And the greatest minds have made discoveries in very disparate fields. So I think there is understanding for that.
Okay. And the next question is, do you have a gender balance policy for ERC Plus grants?
The important thing is, like for any other grants of the ERC, that is starting, consolidator, advanced or ERC Plus, is that your host institution must have a gender equality plan. And this is important. This is a tick box that you need to put in your proposal.
And
But
in addition,
we have no
yes,
quotas.
But we
there
have
are
no
no
quotas.
but at the same time, it's one of the things the Scientific Council has always championed and made sure that the panels are fully briefed
Yeah.
on any forms of potential
Yes.
bias.
Yes, so I give an extensive bias briefing to the panels before they work, and we're seeing equal success rates, but we don't have quotas.
Okay, very clear. How much of the 7 million can be allocated for personnel and how much for equipment? I think that will depend on the project.
This is totally up to each applicant and totally depending on the way you want to build your project to achieve your objectives. The important thing is that you allow the necessary means to achieve your scientific objectives. The breakdown does not matter.
Yeah. Has to be justified,
Yes.
but if you can justify it, you can do anything you like.
Exactly.
Clear. This is a question we've covered already, but it's important to underline it again. Can I apply to the Plus grant in parallel to other ERC grants?
The answer is clear, it's no.
Very clear. So one active application
Correct.
at any
At
time.
any
Yes.
time. Yes.
Very clear. Then, any tips for humanities scholars wanting to apply? The question is it only going to be artificial intelligence stuff? I'm not sure if I fully answered the question,
I hope
but
not.
humanities scholars perfectly eligible in the same way that all
We-
areas of...
We have fantastic projects in religious history, or, like I say, archaeology, in social sciences, migration, anything, linguistics, you name it. We have wonderful projects in these areas, and I'm hoping to see some groundbreaking applications in that.
There is no reason to think that any top idea will not come from any research area.
It's not technology, it's scholarly research, discovering knowledge.
Maybe I can take not the next question, one afterwards, because it's in a similar vein in terms of there is a concern this will just be for STEM subjects, stating that Synergy is already dominated by STEM grants, which isn't something I've seen.
No, I don't
Synergy
think that's true.
has many grants in humanities and in social sciences.
Absolutely.
So I think we've
Absolutely,
answered that question already in the
Yes.
answer to the previous one.
We have a very large proportion of our funding going to social sciences and humanities.
Okay. The next question, Philippe, maybe we come back to the question on equipment.
Yep.
So it's asking for advice. Would it be considered a good example for the need for an ERC Plus, for the need to purchase a very expensive machine, say 5 million euros?
I don't have to tell you if it's a good or wrong example. Again, related to the answer to the previous question, the important thing is that you convince the panel members that your costs are justified to achieve your scientific objective.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. The panel members will know what is needed to achieve the objective that you need to have and that you put in your proposal. The important thing is that you are credible in your proposal.
But, it is an example.
It is an example,
They
yes.
can't apply to a regular ERC grant if they need 5 million in, it could be a ship or something that they need for an expedition that takes 7 years, and they have money for staff from other sources, then they put that in.
Yep.
So it's really it's very much the end justifies the means here.
Yes.
But
it's
it's
very
the
much
idea.
dependent.
It's the idea that's important, first of all.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. And
But it is an example of something why it might go beyond a regular
That's
ERC
correct.
grant.
And it very much depends on your scientific area.
Yeah.
Some clinical studies may be extremely expensive.
Yes,
And
exactly.
this may be a good way to do it
Yes,
also in the ERC
exactly,
Plus.
exactly.
Okay. Then a question in terms of the order of applications. Is it possible to apply if your current ERC grant will finish before the start of the ERC Plus? Are you able to apply, for example, in the last months of your current grant to the ERC Plus score, Philippe?
Yes, the idea is yes. You have to apply at least 2 years before the end of your current project, if my recollection is correct. At most.
At most. But all of these things will be set out in the work
Yes,
programme,
in
in the
any
call
case, yeah.
text, so you can check your eligibility. But the answer is yes, there will be some allowance for people who are finishing their grants.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all the other rules apply as to the regular grants.
Exactly, yeah.
And there is that provision that they can.
The question, perhaps, Maria, this comes to you because it's a question that's discussed a lot in the Scientific Council, is they see that there is a problem with the current ERC grants because of a lack of interdisciplinary panels. Yes. And will Plus grants help with this?
We hope. We hope. The first step will, of course, I mean, as I've said many times, we will, especially for these, not emphasize feasibility at the first step, which is often a breaker for interdisciplinary. We had a session, we've just coming out of our Scientific Council meeting, which finished at lunchtime today. We had a session on interdisciplinary. We will be putting new measures in to help interdisciplinary grants. So we will have better ways of collecting evidence from different panels if there is need for expert knowledge from different panels. So we're hoping, and we will have those in place by next year. And so we're hoping that this will help. And the second step, of course, is interdisciplinary by definition.
Indeed.
So I think the answer to that one is yes.
The next question I know comes from a university administrator, and we understand you fully. The question is, why do you keep putting deadlines in September? With the summer breaks, it becomes a serious burden. We have already the advanced grants. Those are working in other areas, so clusters in September, the Marie Curie actions as well, starting grants in October. Yeah. Can we try and find the call calendar in a different way?
We fully understand that. You have to understand that the call calendar is extremely packed, and we have to accommodate in the call calendar for many funding schemes, the starting grants, the consolidated grant, the advanced, the synergy, the proof of concept, the POC, and the ERC Plus. So this is a very, very packed agenda. And we have no choice but to put those deadlines for some part of the funding schemes. And we realize that this is not always easy, but we don't see any other way around. Yeah.
So the alternative would be to put those, we can't shift. We have 100 panels of evaluators come to this building. We're sitting here in the ERC building every year. So practically every working week, minus Christmas and the summer holidays, has people here evaluating, and so we have no flexibility. Yeah. The only option we would have instead of September, October, is to put the deadlines into June, which would help you, but then the distance between the deadline and being told the outcome would be much longer, would be 3 additional months. And nobody likes that either. So we apologize, we're not happy to have to do this to the scientific community, but we're massively constrained.
But I think we understand that, and it's a plea to all of you researchers out there who are writing applications, get in contact with your university administrative staff early. Make sure they're aware that you're applying, they can help you.
Yeah. And we also hope, of course, that such webinars will help you to already reflect on your ideas and already reflect and help you to put things on paper. Yeah, but come on, we know
everybody finishes writing on the day before the deadline. Let's not kid ourselves.
Still.
But they can start preparing and liaising with the university administrative staff earlier. Exactly, that will help an awful lot. Okay. So the next question is, can somebody who's... Oh, sorry, no, this is the questions all change in order. Pardon. Will the additional 1 million for startup costs and 2 million for applicants to moving to an ERC and an EU or associated country be made available for the ERC Plus? These additional funding?
Yes, so for the ERC Plus, there will be no additional funding. It's up to 7 million, whatever can happen, full stop.
Okay, very clear. And then the question which I was reading is, can somebody apply who is currently in, as they say, a sanction from an unsuccessful stage 1 application to an ERC grant?
The answer is no, they cannot apply. The only exception is from the synergy grants. But otherwise, if you have a B or a C, for example, at the step 1, starting, COC or advanced, you are not entitled to apply for the ERC Plus 2026.
So those restrictions from those grants also apply to ERC Plus.
There is another restriction that I need to mention. If you are also an advanced grant panel member 2026, you may also not apply to the ERC Plus for the very simple good reason that the Advanced Grant Panel Member 2026 will assess the ERC Plus Step 1.
Okay, thank you. So I move to the next question. Maria, you mentioned the timetable. There's a call to be more specific about it. When will the call open? Oh, just to change, but I'll read it anyway. And when will the deadline be? And when can we expect to hear about the results? You able to give more on the timetable?
Yeah.
Maybe more
Philippe,
for you,
you want
Philippe.
to do this again?
Yes, on the timetable, as I mentioned, the call is expected to be published at the latest in June, at the latest 2nd of June in principle. We may advance the publication dates. This has to be fixed in the work program. You will see all the details when they are published. The deadline is expected to be 2nd of September. This will be confirmed in the published work program.
Which is due when?
Which is due very soon, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the forthcoming weeks, the updated, amended work program 2026 will be published.
Okay.
And the results will become known beginning of 2027.
That's correct, exactly.
Okay, very clear. So if the grant is for a single PI, or it's a program that requires collaborators, can the collaborators already receive funds? You've mentioned this already, Philippe, in terms it's the same rules for our individual grants when it comes to collaborators.
It means indeed there could be partners, collaborators who may receive money in the ERC Plus, like they can do already in any other funding scheme that we have in the ERC.
Okay. Then some large grants limit the number of applications. I think some grant organizations limit the number of applications from a single institution. So they pre-screen applications. Is that the plan for ERC Plus?
No, it does not apply for ERC Plus. It does not apply for ERC
anything,
in general, neither for starting, COC, or advanced, or synergy.
But of course, a host institution may choose to do that internally, but that's their business.
Yes,
it's
That's
not
their
ours.
business,
not up
yes,
to us,
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Is it not intended mainly for Europe outside, or from people outside of Europe to come to Europe? They say that this is the meaning of President Macron, President von der Leyen, but I mean the wording that was used, I think, was very different there, clear from the outset.
Von der Leyen was very clear about this being for Europe to be attractive, and that means attractive for people who are here and people who want to come here. It's not meant for that. The thing that is meant exclusively for incoming researchers is the additional funding for people who want to bring their research groups to Europe. So want to relocate from anywhere in the world. It could be China, it could be India, it could be South America, or it could be the US or Canada, wherever, to Europe. They can apply for an additional 1 million in so-called additional funding. Again, it doesn't come automatically, it has to be justified.
And that's for the individual grants.
That is really for incoming, for the individual grants. So we mustn't confuse this.
Yes, and it's only for the starting, consolidator, and advanced grant, not for ERC Plus. For ERC Plus, there is no whatsoever additional funding, even to relocate from a non-EU or non-SC country within EU.
So the maximum 7 million is
maximum 7 million fixed, no matter what.
Very clear, very clear. Then the question, Philippe, maybe coming to you again in terms of how will the evaluation panels for ERC Plus be structured? We've mentioned this, but I think it's good to clarify. Will it be similar to the normal, as they say, ERC grants?
So for the ERC Plus, I suppose you mean the step 2 panels?
Maybe go through the whole process again.
I can perfectly go through the whole process. So as Maria already pointed out, any applicant will have to choose one of the 28 panels when they apply. At the step 1, the advanced grant panel member will assess those proposals in their own panel. Let me insist that those are two distinct calls. Advanced grant ERC Plus are two totally separated calls. But the idea that the advanced grant panel member will be assessing at the step 1, the ERC Plus, is to have an idea of benchmarking. What are the top proposals? What sort of top proposals are at the advanced grant, and how can we benchmark the ERC Plus in this comparison compared to the advanced grant? That's the intention. But those are two totally separate calls. So step 1, the evaluation is made by the advanced grant panel members. For the step 2, as Maria mentioned, the evaluation is performed by a new set of panel members. And this is a major difference as compared to the other funding scheme of the ERC, where the panel members stay the same for the step 1 and for the step 2. This is different for the ERC Plus. At the step 2, panel member, as mentioned by Maria, will be outstanding people with a broad overview of the scientific area, a broad overview, interdisciplinary overview. This is very important. And all the proposal advancing from step 1 to step 2 will be assessed by those ERC Plus panel members who will be helped, as I mentioned, by a number of remote reviewers. First, new remote reviewers, people specialized in the scientific area respective to each proposal advancing to step 2, but also the advanced grant panel member at the step 1 will also act as remote reviewers for the step 2. This is the way the whole core evaluation will be patterned, will be architected.
Okay, so the next question really looks at what we call portability. Maybe I can come to you for that, Philippe, as well. Will Plus grants be transferable between institutions in the same way that other ERC grants are?
Yes, they will. There is no difference compared to any other type of funding scheme at the ERC. The same rule applies for portability.
And
no reason
And that
not
can apply
to
to any point in your grant, even day
That's
one?
correct. From day one to the last day.
Okay, very, very clear.
The last day will be a bit complicated.
Not much money left to transfer on the last day.
Yes.
And so there was a question, I think it was maybe a phrase we mentioned. What does it mean that researchers who relocate to the EU should be in the process of setting up a lab in the EU? How should that be demonstrated? That's not quite what we said, but I think we could maybe clarify that. Philippe, maybe I can
No, I
see you for
mean,
that.
just to clarify, when you apply to an ERC, for example, starting grant, COC, or ERC Plus or Advance, you can be located in any place of the world.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yes.
In the process of the evaluation, you may of course be busy with relocating, negotiating with host institution. It doesn't matter. The important point is that when your project starts, you will be performing your research within the country, within a host institution located in the EU or a country associated to the framework program. That's the important thing. Keep in mind the time of submission, the time of starting your research or your grants. At the time of submission, you can be located anywhere in the world. At the time of starting your project, you must be located in EU or associated country.
50% of your time.
50% of your time, exactly.
That's it.
It doesn't mean that you cannot have also an affiliation with another institution, but 50% of your time spent on this ERC grant must be in a location within EU or associated country.
Okay, thank you very much. So, are we coming back to feasibility, Maria? If I come back to you, will you be seeking proof that the idea will or may work? How much risk?
How can you prove whether a project that's planned for 7 years, what kind of proof can there be? The only proof is in doing it. So no, of course not. We are looking at sensible approaches. That's what I meant by approach. It's not feasibility. You can't know. Now, if you come up with crazy ideas that have been proven by others not to work, then you haven't done a good job. Okay. Then it's not a sensible project. It's not a sensible approach to propose. But no, we can't. Proof is at the end of 7 years. Has it worked or not?
Okay. We have 15 minutes left. I see we have 114 questions unanswered. We will, don't worry.
Some of them are repetitive.
We will, questions which haven't been asked already, we will ensure that we get answers to these in writing. So, question on eligibility is what we've mentioned already. If your current grant ends in 2027, are you eligible to apply for the ERC Plus grant?
The answer is yes. It's 2 years, at max 2 years before the end of your project, so you can apply, yes.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next one then. How many early stage researchers you know that are leaders in your field? Are we talking, I'm not entirely sure what the question is there, but is it really credible that early stage researchers can be leaders in their field?
Yeah. May I give an example at the risk of being unfair, but give an example I can think of in my own field. You all know, well, some of you will know about brain organoids. Brain organoids were the method for making them and the first experiments in using them to find out amazing things were done by a woman called Madeleine Lancaster, who was working in the lab of a very established scientist, Jürgen Knoblich. It was she who did it. She got a job straight from that, and it was perfectly clear. She did that work. She was the leader. So it exists. In mathematics and computer science, it's far more normal anyway for, in philosophy and many of the humanities, it's very normal for PhDs to have their absolutely own project, and if that's a groundbreaking discovery, it's theirs. So yes, it exists. We have examples.
Okay. The question from from a university administrator, will the overheads be fixed at 25%? Again, this is a lump sum grant.
It applies.
It applies.
Clear.
Thank you. Then the next question, since ERC Plus falls under Choose Europe, will there be a requirement to guarantee researcher employment beyond the duration of the grant?
No, the answer is no.
It's the same as all,
all
of our individual grants.
There is no particular rule for that.
Yes.
I mean, don't make it more complex than it is.
No.
I mean, there is no difference in terms of such roles with ERC Plus compared to the other grants.
Yes,
That's
all
important.
the administrative rules,
Yes.
all the eligibility
Exactly,
conditions, everything is like for the others.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
And then a question in terms of, can a rejected proposal from other ERC grants be turned into an ERC Plus proposal?
If it was rejected in the last 2 years, probably not, because we have restrictions. So if you're restricted from applying, you can't apply. If you think you didn't convince the panel to which you presented that one, and this one, which is 30 times as competitive,
Indeed.
will be convinced, then you really have to have done something in the meantime that has changed that one.
Yep.
So, it's
Yes.
up to the applicant.
Maria, maybe you can make the point you made before in terms of the number of grants in ERC Plus and the
Yes,
number of
exactly.
individual grants.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you didn't succeed in a field of 1,000 grants that are available, this is 30 times as competitive because there's only 30 for all fields and all career stages.
Yep.
So I think that would be an uphill struggle.
Okay, move to the next question. Given the political context in which these grants were given, will there be a preference given to US-based researchers coming to the EU?
No. Field only, excellence only, no other criteria, no quotas, nothing. Excellence and the idea and the quality of the researcher only.
Yeah.
But the
As
same-
it is already the
Yes.
case for
Yeah.
any other
Yes.
grants.
Indeed.
And
Indeed.
again, we make that very clear in our briefings.
And the next question is in the same vein. Given that excellence is the primary criterion, was there any way to ensure the geographical diversity of grants so that not everything goes to a few institutions?
We don't do that in any other grants at the ERC. The only criteria is excellence.
But once again, in our panel briefings, we remind our panels that they shouldn't look at host institutions.
Correct. It's not a
They
criteria.
shouldn't
Correct.
look at people coming from, famous backgrounds, etc. We remind them that people coming from such centres of excellence actually have an easier time proposing something. They get more support from their environment, more intellectual support, more technical support. We remind the panels. So we really push against bias for these institutions. But ultimately, it will be the idea and the proposal that will make the day or not.
Okay. Then a question which I think we've covered already. Will unsuccessful applicants be allowed to resubmit?
Well, Maria has provided already some clues on that one. I guess it may also depend towards which funding scheme
Yes.
you want to resubmit.
Yes.
If it's, for example, to a starting COC or advance, or if it is for ERC Plus, this will have to be clarified. All the necessary provisions will be in the Work Programme 2027 that will be published later in July, normally, of 2026. But as Maria mentioned, there are already some clues from the discussion at the Scientific Council that in principle, people who may fail for ERC Plus 2026 may nevertheless be allowed to resubmit for starting COC or advanced 2027. But those are discussions that are being pursued. The definitive answer, definitive provision will be in the Work Programme 2027. This is the legal basis that will exist for those conditions. Important to keep in mind.
Yes. But if the question was, you failed in ERC Plus, can you resubmit next year in ERC Plus? Again, we do not yet have a legal basis for saying that, but I think the Council was tending towards being doubtful about that.
Okay. Thank you.
So again, decide carefully for in which year, when you apply.
The next question really is to understand what the difference is between ERC Plus and Synergy. They are quite different. You talked about single PI, multiple PI, and maybe Philippe, if you can explain a little more?
Collaborative research, to build a grant with 2 to 4 people is different compared to building a grant for one single
Indeed.
PI. The purpose of the synergy is really to benefit from the expertise of 2 to 4 different people. While the ERC Plus, of course, you may have some collaborator, but the main objective, the main idea, the main expertise relies in one single PI.
Yes.
So this is a big difference between the two funding schemes.
Yeah. And we were very clear about the synergy. Synergy grants are based on, well, excellence, of course, and the extra definition is there. Is it a project that could not be done by one of those people alone?
Yep.
Is there a synergy, which is not at all the same as interdisciplinarity? They may all come from the same discipline. So it really is a difference.
Yes.
Here, collaborators, of course, you can have them, but
the core is
the core is the applicant, the single PI.
Okay, thank you. And the question is, can those collaborators also come from industry?
Absolutely, totally.
Sure.
There is no reason to restrict any good collaboration, provided that it's clarified in the grant agreement, in the proposal, why and the purpose.
Yes.
That's the important thing.
There was a question in terms of, you mentioned that ERC Scientific Office can help with preparing proposal. I'm not sure that's quite what we said. We talked about they can help in terms of clarifying the
Let me
goals.
clarify
But
this.
your
this
admin
answer.
staff can help, yes.
I mean, scientific officers are not entitled to help people to prepare the projects.
Exactly.
The preparation of the project is only in your hands, but scientific officer may help you in guiding you where the forms are located, what are the conditions, what are the restrictions, what are any details like that you may need to know, what are the details of the evaluation. This is also important for you to know. But they will not help you in building your projects. I need to be very, very strict and clear on that
That's
one.
very clear. There is help out there through the national contact points, which are appointed by your member states, or in all of the EU countries. The university administrative staff as well can all help you, but not the staff of the ERC when it comes to proposal writing.
And do read the details. Talk to your administration about the details before contacting the scientific officers.
Yes.
They know many of the answers already. They know this well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And CPs are the first contact points.
The national contact points.
Yeah, the national contact points are the first people that you need to get in touch with. Especially also, you may want to get in touch with specialized offices at your host institution who may be used to run and to advise on ERC funding schemes. But otherwise, the first contact is always what is called the national contact points. They are specialized people, they know the rules.
And they're listed on our website.
They are listed on the
we
website.
can put the link also in
Absolutely,
the information box for this webinar.
Yeah.
So the next question, we've answered it already, but I think it's useful to reiterate. Can postdocs apply for this grant?
The answer is yes.
You will need, this is where you will need a letter from your host institution that by the time you receive your grant, you have the necessary infrastructure to carry it out. So you can't just apply and say, I'll go somewhere. We need to know that there will be an institution that will provide you with the office, the library, the lab, whatever it is you might need.
And I also remind you that postdocs may also apply to starting grant, to consolidator grants, to advanced grants.
Exactly.
It all depends on the eligibility window and the eligibility rules. But it's not only that you can apply to ERC Plus. And keep in mind always the competitivity that will occur in the ERC Plus. I'm repeating myself, but I think this is something very critical to keep in mind.
Okay. Then there's a question whether there's a TRL requirement for this goal. Is there a link in terms of the technology readiness level? No.
No.
Do you need a host institution at the time of submission? We talked about the host institution letter, so I think we've answered that already.
Yes.
The application process must have a letter of support from your host institution.
That's correct.
You don't have to currently be working there, but there needs to be a letter showing that the host institution you're applying with will support you, as Maria just mentioned.
And that's true regardless of whether you're coming into Europe or whether you're finishing your postdoc and looking forward to moving to a job, but you have something lined up where you will be doing the work, and you need approval from that.
Yes.
I mean, you need the support letter from that institution.
We have a lot of questions still unanswered. We're at 23 minutes past 4 Brussels time. I suggest we take another 2 questions, and then we'll have some closing remarks. Maybe Maria would like to say something else in closing. But how many grants will be awarded per panel? We talked about 3 panels. Is it 10 each for LS, PE, and SH?
No.
First of all, there will not be any LS,
quotas.
PE, or SH panels. At the step 2,
Yeah.
panel will be totally domain neutral.
Yeah.
It means that each panel will be formed by a representative of SH, LS, and PE experts, and there is no quota for any of the domain.
No. And so, you know, if we receive 500 proposals and 400 of them are in the social sciences and humanities, well, so be it. Then they will be assessed at that step, and the likelihood that more of those will go through to the second step is there, and then the second step panels will have to deal with that. So no quotas. It's not the case that each of the advanced grant panels who will be doing the first step will be allowed to pass 1 or 2 or 3 onto the second step. No. If they have the oh wow proposals, then they pass them on.
I'm going to take 2 final questions. We'll go to the second one currently because it's a very quick one. In the medical field, professors from the USA, I think that's true of everywhere, don't often hold PhDs. Can they also apply for this Plus grant?
There's no PhD requirement,
Exactly.
even for the advanced grants.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
no requirement.
So that's why it was quick. I knew
Yes.
that would be the answer. Maybe we can go to one final question. In the case of transformative cross-disciplinary proposals, how will you evaluate the track record? Will one need expertise in all of the subfields proposed?
So it's fairly easy because the first step will be by the panels, and if one panel can't judge, they will ask input from the other panel.
Exactly. I mean, don't forget that as it already occurs now, when you have this need for expertise from other panels, this is feasible and this is done at the ERC. There can be an expert coming from a different panel helping for another panel. And this is typical at the step 1, for example, and this will also, I guess, occur at the step 1 for the ERC Plus. That's very clear. And for the step 2, don't forget that there will be remote reviewers, and those people will be specialized for the expertise that is required for the for the proposal that is concerned. So.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of time. I think we've now got to the end of the time we have for questions. I know there are many which are unanswered. Rest assured, we will ensure if they've not already been covered in the answers we have given, we will provide answers in writing, which will be posted on our website. Give us some time. There's over 100 questions. We'll need to look at them, but we'll make sure that they all have answers where they've not been answered already. But maybe, I don't know if you have a 30-second things which either of you want to say in terms of what you've seen from this webinar, some points which you'd like to make which perhaps haven't come up. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, I'm just incredibly excited to see what will be coming in. I hope you don't set yourselves up for disappointment. We both reiterate this. If you're unsure, better apply to your regular grant. Your chances are 30-fold higher of being funded there. The chance that you actually need 7 million, you take a 30-fold higher risk to get 7 million rather than your regular risk for getting anywhere between 1.5 and 2.5 million. I recommend you think about that carefully, but we're very excited to see what's coming in. Of course, only we'll see the final result because, as we've reiterated, I'm not involved in the evaluation, but I'm excited. And
the same for me,
please,
and I wish you all the best, and thank you for your interest in the program. That's the most important thing as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, look,
very good.
Thank you to you all for tuning into this webinar. We hope you found it useful and had answers to the questions which you may have had. Before you go, please answer one last question on Slido to give your feedback on this webinar and help us improve for future webinars. You'll be able to answer this question on Slido for 1 week after the end of this webinar, so you can do it at any time. The code will remain the same, so you don't need to fill it in now, but we'd really appreciate it that you do fill it in. As Maria says, it's probably best you do it now so that it's done. On the YouTube channel, you will find in a few days a more condensed version of today's question and answer session with a few things which you'll need to know about the ERC Plus grants. It's an interview which I did with Maria with a series of questions and answers. You'll find that in a few days on our YouTube channel. and the link will be there in the description box of this webinar in a few days' time. For timely updates on ERC funding, please go to our website. Maria's already mentioned that to you. And also follow us on LinkedIn, on X, on Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook, or our WhatsApp channels. We have many different options where you can find more information about our funding. And Philippe and Maria just mentioned the national contact points. Please remember them. The link to their contacts is given on our website, and we will include it in this comments box as well. They're really your first point of contact in thinking about preparing applications. So before we leave, I'd like to thank Maria for spending the time with us here this afternoon, also Philippe for answering all of the questions that you've had. And I'd also like to thank my team, to thank Hilda, to thank Callie, Marcin and Aras, and all of the team of colleagues who've been involved in answering questions in this webinar. Some have been answered in writing in the background in Slido. And with that, I'd like to wish you a very good afternoon from Brussels. Goodbye, and good luck in writing proposals to the ERC.
Goodbye.
Thank you.